Take him out of the gutter in your mind's eye. Here was a friend of mine, Freedom Barry, that I sent to San Francisco to teach this law. He hasn't had the experience of the promise, so he can't teach the promise. But he teaches the law. Before he opened, he saw a man crossing the street while he was airing his little dog. The man came over. First of all, he passed nice complimentary thoughts about the dog, which Freedom enjoyed. And then he said, could you let me have a little money? And Freedom said, I'm sorry, but I do not have any money. The man was very nice about it, a gentleman evidently, and he went his way. And Freedom, before he made one step, he remained right there on that sidewalk and saw that man gainfully employed. He said to Freedom he hadn't worked. He was out of work. And Freedom saw him gainfully employed and felt the thrill of his employment. A month later, Freedom is out walking the little dog, and this man crosses the street, comes over to Freedom, and he said, I don't suppose you remember me. And Freedom said, oh, yes, I do. Very well. He said, well, I want to thank you for not giving me money 1 month ago when I asked you. Had you given it to me, I'd be asking you for money today. But I got so mad with myself to be placed in that position to ask a total stranger for money, I went home determined I am going to get a job. He didn't know what Freedom had done, but Freedom did that, which pushed him out of that state of asking for money into a state of earning it. He went out the very next day after he met Freedom and got himself a job that paid well. He said, I'm on the job that I got the day after I asked you for money. I'm still on it, and there is room for growth in that job, and I'm sticking with the job. So again, thank you for not giving me the money. If Freedom had done what most people would do, would have walked away and said, no, I don't have any money for you, or I don't have money, without explaining why. But Freedom did something about it. He put the man in an entirely different state. And having put him in a different state, the man got a job the very next day. So I say to anyone, you can try it. Don't pass the buck and help everyone in this world. You create states to deliver individuals evermore. These are states that you create, and you can drop them. But the other states of which I spoke earlier, the spiritual states of the soul are forever, and no one's going to change them. But to make myself clear, when you are in the final state of the apostle, it doesn't mean you're better than you yourself when you're in that multitude of confusion. For God was playing that as he's playing the state of the apostle. But God is above all states, and you are God. So you're not an apostle forever. You play that, and that's the final part of the journey. And you come out redeemed when you hit that state. And you know that you are the apostle because you're sent. And the apostle is one who is sent. It's only then you know you've been chosen for a definite reason, and you're sent to tell what's going to happen to you. Well, then 30 years later, in my case, it happened to me that I could then speak with authority. I was not quoting anyone. I was not in any way speculating or theorizing. So when I tell you David is the Christ, I speak from authority, from experience, and therefore I speak with authority. When I tell you he is the only Son, which is a resultant state of the journey you made through those eternal spiritual states. And when you hit the last one, you are born. Listen to these words. In the King James Version and Moffat's Version and others that I have at home, it's correctly translated. The Revised Standard Version, the New English Version, have added a word that confuses the entire thing. This is now the 8th chapter, the 11th verse of Romans. If the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in us, he will also raise Christ. Two entirely different ones. But if you say also raise Jesus Christ, you're going to confuse the entire thing. So the King James Version leaves off the word Jesus when it comes to the second raising, which is Christ. And it happens just like that. Jesus comes first. It's the I am of man. That's the Father. He is awakened first. 5 months later, then comes David. 139 days after the Father awakens within the sepulchre. Then comes an explosion, 139 days later, and then David stands before you. He is the resultant state. Now, when you read the Bible in the future, and I hope you all will, always bear in mind the characters mentioned there and depicted there are not individuals as you and I are. They are states of consciousness. From Adam to the very end. These are all states of consciousness. So, the names signify the state, if you know the meaning of the name. But do not think when you use the word Abraham, you're speaking of a man. As when I speak of Bill, Bill is a man. He's an individual. It is God wearing that mask called Bill. But when I speak of Abraham, that's a state of consciousness. But when you meet these states of consciousness in vision, they are personified. And you see a man, but it is not man as you are man. All these are contained within the human imagination. So when you encounter Abraham, well, you're going to see a man. And you know he's Abraham. When you encounter David, you meet a youth, an eternal youth. But it's a resultant state. You are above all states. You are God. Every being in this world is God, and God is one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And never get away from that. That is fundamental. The minute you have two gods, you're going to get confusion. 2 will become 4, and 4, 8, and 8, 16, and you get confusion in the world. Only one God. And that God is named forever and forever is I am. That's the being. So when you awaken within the sepulchre, you know who awoke. You say, I am. There's no one present, just yourself. And you come out without the help of anyone. And then comes the imagery of Scripture that surrounds you, bearing witness to the truth of the story. But you are cast from then on in the central role. And so everything unfolds within the imagination of man.